And now to NBC's new reporting on a major clash between the president's acting defense secretary and Mr. Trump's strongest ally in the Republican Senate, Lindsey Graham, an argument that could spike the cabinet secretary's chances of holding on to his job. According to this report, acting defense secretary Patrick Shanahan and Senator Graham got into a heated argument in the Munich Security Conference at a private session there this weekend over the president's plan to withdraw all U.S. troops from Syria by the end of April. Their meeting got so intense, Graham reportedly unleashed a string of expletives and called himself Shanahan's adversary. Joining me now, NBC's national security and military reporter Courtney Kuby, the co-author of the story and someone who was in Munich for all of the action last weekend. Courtney, this is very tense. You don't want to lose Lindsey Graham if you are the acting defense secretary, already being criticized by many for not being up to the job, not having any military background, coming from the defense, the community of Boeing. I mean, he was basically a corporate executive in Boeing as a contractor rather than as anyone with any, experience, boots on the ground.
That's right. I mean, so Secretary Shanahan, I don't think anyone really disputes that he understands sort of the defense and industrial base side of the job of the Pentagon. And a lot of people might argue that as the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the job that he had under Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, that's actually really important. You're sort of the administrator of the Pentagon in a lot of ways. But moving him in now as the Acting Secretary of Defense, a role he's been in for about 2 months, there's a much larger geopolitical role that you play in that. And so last week we saw his first overseas trip. He went to the war zones, Iraq and Afghanistan. He went to NATO and Brussels. And then, of course, he went to Munich, where you and I spent a little quality time over the weekend at the security conference. And this was his big stepping out on the world stage. He had international conferences or events as the deputy, but never as the acting secretary. So this delegation, Lindsey Graham headed up a congressional delegation, bipartisan members, Senate and the House, and they had a briefing with him on a whole range of issues and topics. But when it got to the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria, Senator Graham, who has been pretty vocal about his opposition to withdrawing all U.S. troops from Syria, he really clashed with him, getting angry, according to a number of people who were in the room during this briefing, Andrea. And ultimately, he said, on this issue, you and I are going to be adversaries.
Well, let's just look towards the future. Patrick Shanahan has the support of the president. He's been praising him at cabinet meetings in public. Does he keep the job, or does Lindsey Graham's opposition mean that he would have trouble getting confirmed?
So the people I've been speaking to about this are a little bit split. When Shanahan first came into the job in those first couple of weeks, everyone really thought at the Pentagon that it was his job to lose. He just needed to, support the president, put on a good face, and that ultimately he would be the nominee. His showing on the world stage didn't really help that last week, and I'm starting to hear more and more talk about other potential people who might actually get the nomination. One of them is the Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson. Another is actually Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. His name has been out there for some time, and I'm hearing more whispers about it just recently. So the people on the Hill who I've been asking about this, they seem to think that if he got the nomination, he could probably get through confirmation. But people just aren't really certain at this point whether he's actually going to get it from President Trump.
Well, I can tell you that Mike Pompeo is in very good step with the president. And in Cairo a couple of months back, he described himself as, well, I'm a military man. He was first in his class at West Point. He's very proud of that, as he should be. And I could see a scenario where they would shift him over if that's what the president wants.
Yes, absolutely.
Courtney, thank you so much. And
Thanks.
Coming up, firing back.